We have got Councillor Cowles joining us on via Zoom this morning. Do we have, I think we have an apology for Councillor Thompson. So do we have any other apologies? Move to accept those. Councillor Holding, Deputy Mayor Halaleli, thank you. Those in favour say aye, and against that's carried. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Ryan.
Just an interest in item 6.3. I've done some marketing work for Waitaki Contracting over the past year, but I will remain in the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, point of order. I just didn't hear what you said. Can you repeat that?
Just an interest in 6.3. I've done some marketing work for Waitaki Contracting over the past year.
Good as gold. Thank you very much. No others. That's fine. No one for public forum, so we'll go on to straight to leadership reports. Item 4.1. I will take it as read. I have asked the Deputy Mayor to just give a verbal update on the meeting that she attended. That I couldn't get to at the was it whenever that was in September. So Hannah, do you want to give an update now?
Yes, through the chair. Thank you for the opportunity to attend. That was on the 17th, 18th of September. I attended the meeting. It was the first of two sessions as part of the whole localism and future for local government review work that the sector are doing. It was a really good opportunity to attend that meeting. We started with a Sunday afternoon meeting or gathering, and that was attended by representatives from the local and regional councils, mainly by our sector. Discussions were held about localism, our vision for our local communities being able to make their own decisions. So that was really interesting, just networking with everyone and just getting a feel for the room. Monday we had a panel discussion, and it was really good to have our CE Alex Palmley be part of that and sharing his expertise and experience as being part of the panel. We also discussed and workshopped the Future for Local Government report and the recommendations and the analysis around the 17 recommendations. We did work in our groups, tested our views, and the LGNZ team were to collate all the feedback ready for the next meeting in November. I guess one of the examples of one of the recommendations, like number 7, to initiate a reorganisation of local government, to strengthen, support and resource councils, to plan for and respond to increasing challenges and opportunities, and to set up the sector for a more complex future. So at the moment, we know that there are 78 local authorities in Aotearoa, 11 regional authorities, 61 territorial authorities and 6 unitary authorities and 110 community boards. So that's a massive, group, and it's really hard to try and get everybody on the same page, but everyone has the same vision around wanting to do the best they can for their community. The panel recommended that we look at the future form and structure, including the different roles, the functions and the governance arrangements. For that, the day also included a keynote speaker talking about the sector and encouraging us to consider developing or how we can develop a consensus and forming a position statement to engage on the position and how we can form a relationship with the new government. So all of that kind of aligns with things where we are at, and I'm not sure if our CE wants to make any other comments, but that's just a wee update from my end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Palmley, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I'll just add, I mean, the objective really is that we try and get agreements across local government on a shared position that we can then discuss with government how we can change the sector for the better so it can serve communities better into the future, really. So as stated, there's a further session planned in November, which will lead then to a special meeting of LGNZ to agree that position with a view to going into discussions with governments in the new year.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Okay, and it's been most of a week since I wrote the report, so but nothing much new to report on the election result. We still wait for the final votes to be counted and then some announcements to be made around what the coalition might look like. So it remains a bit of an uncertain time. during that. But it's just one of those ones where just get on with business as usual and wait to see what happens. The other thing just make special note of is really the community conversations, the public meetings that we're having. Been to a number of them, of the ones that have been held so far. We've still got another 3, I think, to go this week. But yeah, the numbers of people turning out are a bit variable, but the responses have generally been very positive, and just yeah, I think they're very happy with the opportunity, but also the format, the way it's being done. It's a fairly simple structure in many ways, but it's allowing people to feel like their voices have been heard, and that's a very positive thing. So look forward to the ones this week, and we'll see what the results are from there. That will feed into the long-term plan and other plans and so forth along the way. So that's yeah. Any questions on my report or any of the activities, Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, just a couple, Mayor Kuchar, and I endorse your comments about the meeting, the one that in the Opera House last Tuesday night was really valuable, and I went along sort of expecting a relatively small number of people because I think we've been told there were only 15 registered, but the Empire Room was nearly full and a lot of fresh faces and new ideas. And I talked to a couple of people afterwards who enjoyed the mix of views as well. So it's a good approach. 2 questions. I'm just wondering, on page 8, you talk about the fact that the next 3 years of funding for New Zealand cycle trails is pretty much fully allocated to repair the significant damage resulting from this year's weather events in the North Island. I'm wondering if this isn't the optimum time for us to go back to government and say, can we actually have the option to charge for the Alps to Ocean? I mean, it seems to me with the new government, this is the moment. And I pose the question to you and to the Chief Executive, is this the time to actually reactivate that issue and recommence that lobbying? And the only other question is on page 12, we have a reference to going to the Youth Council meeting. And I'm just wondering, again, perhaps it's to the Chief Executive rather than yourself, we used to get minutes and all reports from councillors who went to them, and they're off the radar completely now. And I think it would be fruitful and helpful if we saw either the minutes or a report, and not only would it be fruitful for us, but also for the community at large. So I just ask that that be considered as part of incorporation and agendas at some point in the future.
Okay. Yeah, I think on the latter one, it's really we've got a couple of representatives that sit with the Youth Council, and if they're happy to provide some sort of reporting, we can talk about what that might look like, and yeah, make sure that does happen. Yeah, it's always a challenge with the school year and getting enough of the youth councils along, but it's something we're working on, and something that our representatives there are working on as well. So see them nodding. So yes, we'll take that one on board. As for the Alps Ocean, it does need to be noted that we are getting some funds coming in from some of the tour operators. So it's not that people aren't paying. There is an element of that. The difficulty is, how do you get more casual users or people who aren't associated with tours to stump up? There is work still going, it's still happening, to try and give people every opportunity to donate along the trail as they use it. Things like QR codes and websites and just different ways to pay, so that they can make a donation. So, and I think if that's done well, even though tour operators are making a payment on a per day basis, we might find that actually the people who are actually doing those tours will also want to voluntarily pay some additional funds. So more does need to be done in that regard. But yeah, it's to formalise it and make it something that everyone has to pay. It's difficult. Central Otago used a tag system where you you know, they voluntarily again buy a tag and have that on their bike, showing a bit like green fees, I suppose, on a golf course, showing that people have contributed. But it's it's something that's probably can be talked to central government about, but fundamentally we need them to put in, you know, they currently put $8 million into the annual fund. They need to be at least doubling that so that they can get on and make some progress on, you know, the many trails that are out and about there now. Not sure if Mr. Rendell wants to add anything. No, okay, all good. So no, we've got a very active trail manager, and you know, there's improvements happening, but there's also other improvements we want to make, and we're only going to be able to do that with some additional external funding.
Just wanted to add in regards to one of your meetings that you held with our CE last week on the 18th of October. We had a visit, we had a delegation visit Waitaki from South Seas Healthcare Trust. In Auckland, South Seas are the largest Pacific provider in health and social wellbeing services. So they came down to give our Oamaru Pacific Community Group some support in terms of building some systems and just providing some additional support for our organisation. But it was a good opportunity to bring them into council and just meet some of our key leaders in our community. Pacific providers and leaders around Aotearoa wanting to support our community here in Waitaki, but it also will benefit the wider community. And that's the support that's proposed by South Seas and the Oamaru Pacific Community Group. So it's not just about health, but it's about contributing to the wider community, schools, workplaces, and just about overall community wellbeing. So we look forward to continuing to work with them. They also met with our hospital CE as well, and just looking at different ways or ideas that they can helpfully support. So they'll be visiting again in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. It was a good meeting, CLO and his team, and good opportunity to catch up with him again. But yeah, just the proactiveness of that group in Auckland was very positive, but also the work that they're doing alongside OPICG locally, and some of the opportunities that they see that could be there for us and for them, given the fact that we actually own a hospital. So it was some very interesting discussions we had. Any other questions or comments? Okay, would someone like to move or receive the report? Councillor Linwood, thank you. And Councillor Blackler, thank you very much. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried. Okay, moving now to item 5.1, which is recommendations from the Harbour Area Subcommittee, and we've got all manner of officers who might want to speak to this, but I'll hand over to Mr. Rendell.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kircher. A number of items were discussed at the previous Harbour Area Subcommittee, with a few decisions coming through for council, or a few recommendations coming through for council for ratification or approval. Andy, any questions that you might have on those papers?
Okay, councillors, any questions? Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, I have a question in relation to well, actually I have a question in relation to both recommendations, but looking at the breakwater recommendation first. I notice on page 18 you talk about the Occupiers Liability Act requiring council to take reasonable steps, and then you go on to identify NZS HB 2630-2004 as a standard but not legislation. And you also identify the cost of a guardrail along the presumably seaward side of the breakwater would be approximately $200,000. Given that cost, would that fall into the category of an unreasonable step, or would we be able to argue that was unreasonable and therefore we didn't need to do it, particularly given that the standard is not legally binding?
Thank you very much. There was a great deal of conversation on the day regarding this particular project. We know that access to the breakwater is something that everyone has enjoyed historically, and is something that a number of our community would like to see reinstated. In terms of it being unreasonable, we don't see that it probably would be, given the risks involved. We do from time to time have large rocks being thrust up over the top of the breakwater from sea swell. Given the known risks, we don't see that handrails or guardrails would be something that wouldn't be required, or the cost of that would be unreasonable. As such, the recommendation came to the Harbour Area Committee as it was. It was debated heavily during the meeting, and obviously the Harbour Area Committee have made the motion that you see before you.
If I may supplement to that, I presume the change we're proposing to make today would not prevent an extension or a guide rail or something of that sort, and further access to a longer length of breakwater at some point in the future, were we to either agree to it or were there to be significant community advocacy for that to happen. Okay.
Sorry, just to address that is correct. Essentially what we're saying at this point in time, we no longer wish to progress the project that was the access to the breakwater. We're saying that the status quo will remain for now. The resource consent that we already have in place that prohibits access would continue to remain in place unchallenged.
Are you going to put both recommendations together or separately?
Separately. So got Councillor Holding and then Councillor McCone.
I was just going to add about the barrier there. Probably another unpractical part of it is just having the access for the stone remediation that needs to happen annually. So the cost is probably just not desirable, but the practicality is not ideal either.
Thank you. Councillor McCone.
And just take it further, I think in light of the last fortnight's political movements, I think this is unnecessary expenditure and we should stick with the status quo until we see what's going on and the availability of the time to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, not too sure whether this will change one way or the other, regardless of the political direction overall. Okay. Anyway, we'll now I will seek a mover for the recommendation. That is on. What is it? Page 15. Someone like to move recommendation around the breakwater? Councillor Ryan, sorry. Seconder. Councillor Linwood. Okay, discussion on the recommendation itself. Okay, I shall put that. So just to be clear, 5.1.1. So putting the recommendation, those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. Now we have item 5.1.2, which is the waterfront road realignment. Did anyone have any questions on that first of all? Councillor Hopkins?
Yes. Again, I guess my question is, I get the logic of the recommendation from a tactical and short-term point of view, but I 120% support the strategic plan to put the road behind the Yacht and Power Club building. And I guess really what I want to establish is whether, again, in this instance, if we vote for this today, does that preclude that longer-term strategic objective being implemented at some stage in the future?
Thank you for the question. No, it doesn't. Essentially what we're saying at this point in time is that we'll install some traffic calming measures to try to make it a little bit safer at the moment, but we're not willing to spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars necessary to realign the road behind the Yacht and Power Boat Club. We can also come through at a later point in time.
There is an issue there now which does need to be addressed, and yes, putting the road round behind would resolve that, or much of it. Some of the work would still need to be done. But fundamentally, the cost was just too great. So from the Harbour Area Committee, subcommittee's view, better to get some work done, tidying up what is there, get rid of some of the issues that are caused by that, including health and safety, but also just some of the issues around potholing and so on. So that is something that I don't think will be wasted money by any means. It will be, it is a more short-term measure, but we don't know how long the long-term measure will take to be able to actually do it. So that's where we're at the moment. So I'm happy to move the recommendations. Councillor Holding, thank you, and Councillor Blackler, thank you. Any further discussion? I shall put that. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against? That is carried. Thank you very much. Right, on to 6.1, advertising of the parks maintenance contract. And again, we've got Josh here for that, but also we've got Mike Harrison and Lindsay Hyde, who have been working directly on that. So I'll hand over to you, gentlemen, to start the discussion. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Worship and councillors. Very pleased to bring to you this report. We're going to go to tender for the replacement maintenance contract for, Parks and Reserves maintenance contract. Comparing this to the previous contracts, there's a lot of similarities, but I did want to raise with you the fact that this change, the change we looked for this time is strengthening the partnership and apprenticeships, and we're continuing that, but we're looking to strengthen that because that's been one of the success stories of what we do have at the moment. What we're changing through this is signalling to the market that we will be doing a review of how all of council services are delivered, particularly around the hard surface maintenance in this contract. That's around sealed surfaces. Around we can actually look around how we do that across council. Berms and roadside berms and roadside reserves. Look around, can we pull those together? There's so much that is done by several councils. Can we bring it into one? Cemetery services. And that's looking around, do we better serve that with an in-house resource or some other way of doing it? Aviaries, and that discussion's yet to happen. So what we're doing here is signifying that we will be reviewing this and signifying to the market that there will be a change happening. We just don't know what it's going to be, or can't confirm what it's going to be. The benefit that this contract had with the contract extension, we've continued with that because we are talking about a term of 3 years plus 2 years plus 2 years. If all the controls and benefits put into it. First review will start, we've got a 4-month period where that's grace period from transition from the incumbent contract to the new one to allow to bring things under control and to deliver on that. Then we've got on the contract a 2-year cycle where we're going to review the performance. We still retain at the high level with the 90 score of 90 plus would actually give an automatic extension of 2 years. What we've put into this time is that at that 2-year period will allow for a close miss, so that's in the 85 to 90. So it's still satisfactory performance, but not quite as high as what we'd really like. So we'll give a opportunity for extension with an acceptable improvement plan to move forward. What we've found in previous contracts is that we've missed out by about 2 points over the 90, so around 88, 89. So there's an opportunity there where we can benefit and grow from that and continue to deliver a good service, but to keep it going up. The tension of having the 2-year term extension is something that the contractors note and they see value on that. We're also going to look at the cost for council of retendering is quite a significant one. So by having an improvement program that we can review and it gives us that opportunity to keep controlled values. The one thing we have, and it's been raised previously, is that we do not know where the budget's going to go because every year we need to look at budget. So signifying here that we'll be reviewing that on a regular basis, that gives that scope. We're telling this contractor or this contract, but also to the market for other areas where we will continue to adjust based on superimposed effects. Happy to take any questions on this, and we've got an opportunity here where we can review things, but very keen to hear any comments you might have.
Thank you. Just very quick question, HWA scores, what's HWA? Let's see reference to that.
That's the Health and Workplaces Act NIA 2015.
Thank you. Right, councillors, questions? Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mayor Kircher. Look, thank you for this report. I like the structure you're proposing. I like the assessment percentages and the like. I note on page 26, you've identified at least 5 possible areas that might be taken out of the contract or treated in different ways. My question, I guess, is we're proposing a $3 million a year budget, but then you're saying we're going to go to these guys and say, hey, here's the contract we're going to offer you, but actually it may be quite a lot different from the contract that you actually end up getting. Aren't we likely to essentially be incentivizing them to build in a quite considerable increase in cost estimates simply to cover off the uncertainty of losing sizable portions of the proposed contract? In other words, by saying we can't tell you what you're going to be able to do, and we might change a lot of it, aren't we essentially encouraging them to tell us that it's going to cost us more?
There is a certain risk that can happen, but I think it's important for the market to know possible changes that the organisation could make. You know, we are going through a transformation process, so we need to be having, you know, all their eggs on the table, to put it plainly, to say, hey, look, you know, we need to make sure we're getting the best possible outcome for our communities, and so we need to make sure we've got the best possible levels of service in place to be able to deliver that. So whether that's from a contracting option or if that's through different options available, that's something I think it's important for the market to know, and I don't necessarily think it will particularly load it, because I think some of the key things, especially Sexton services, we're wanting to retain the key services, those key skills that go with it, and they're not hard. Those sort of services are not easy to get.
So yeah, share a similar concern to Councillor Hopkins, and wonder whether there might be a qualifier in there that allows at least some recognition that potentially some of that work could be added, that's being done by contracts elsewhere. Some of the similar work could be added into the past contract, so that the overall aim will be that the contract value doesn't change negatively, so that they can then hopefully not price in that element, because if they know they're going to lose the rubbish bin collection service in the next 2 years, and they're buying a ute to service that activity, then then obviously that's a concern where we need to make sure we cover the cost of that ute in 2 years and not longer. So anyway, if we can do something like that, I think that would be helpful and maybe just take away that concern. Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, we can certainly do that. There's also the risk, the challenge in there is that uneconomic services. So sometimes there is bundling of different different works. So the likes of the bin clearance, if you go out right to the far areas of our district, some of those become uneconomic activities by themselves. So what we're signifying here is that we want to negotiate it and talk it through on an open basis. We don't want to give anything hidden, because if you're loading one part, then it has a big impact. So we're looking for the contractor to be very, very transparent with what they're doing, and that discussion will take place.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins again.
Yeah, I guess my other question is just the I think on the next page 27, you say the contract value indicated for the first year is 3 million, made up of 2.5 for continuous program scheduled items and half a million of reactive works. I guess we have to go to the market now, but given economic circumstances, rising costs, the fact that we're in the process of doing an LTP, and it may well be that we end up with water back within our administrative oversight, whereas previously it was not going to be. Are you confident? I mean, is that a set, again, is that a fixed figure? What if we say we can't afford it and we need to get that cost down to 2 million a year per annum and say that in the LTP for the sake of argument? What happens then?
Through the contract, any changes or variations, so that will have pluses and minuses out of that. So if the budget is significantly affected, and we're talking about this core service or this service levels too. So if we decide that we want to make a change there, yes, there will be a reaction. We need to have that an open book discussion with the contractor, and where that's all we can do at the stage is building the option. We're going to be talking about it, so we're not surprising them after the event.
Yeah.
Councillor Holding.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I was just trying to understand on the community views, reviewing of performance measurement scope will respond to community interests. So do you envision that feedback coming from them as the service levels may change, or do you expect the community feeding into the difference as per the long-term plan process?
Our assets are significant to the community, and we know that through surveys and the comments coming through. So we need to be flexible, and that's what we're saying here. What we do in the contract is if we're actually reducing on a budgetary limitation where we need to look at the level of services, that's something the community will be very interested in, and we need to be recognition. They have a continue that acknowledgement all the way through. So,
Thank you, Councillor McCone.
Thank you. I'm still a bit of clarity. So after 36 months, then they get it right if they have a right of renewal, if they meet the performance contract part of it. Is there a financial consideration there as well from our side?
the financial consideration is having another 2 years with having to go to the market. So that is a value to the contract because it gives that length of time, their investment or return on their investment for it. There's no other bonus gift if you not a bonus achievement.
Just to clarify that a little bit further, we won't be getting the contract initially repriced at that stage. So CPI effects that still come in based on the original price. So any changes to the contract via variations, whether that be positive or negative. So we should be able to predict some of that financial sort of considerations moving forward anyway.
And the review starts after the 2 year, 24 months, so that it gives us a year to actually prepare for that. If there's going to be a rollover extension, we can build that into our budgets in advance.
Thank you. I do have some concern also just on the I guess the underperforming aspects of it. That's my concern there is that 80% is a fairly low measure when we're paying essentially for something that is closer to 100%, and to allow 5 months over in a year to be at that low level before there's any reactive aspects to that would be, I just want to make sure that we aren't setting ourselves up to be, or the community up to be shortchanged by a contractor looking to cut costs at the community expense. So just understanding that, I think 6 scores below 80% over a 12-month period is possibly a little high. I'd like to think that actually, though, if a contractor is performing that poorly, they would be gone before they get to 6 months out of 12. Just would like to know what the thinking is there. Thanks.
The scoring at that level, that would be of great concern. So there'd be information coming through to council around those performance measures well in advance of that. But we do actually measure the reviews on a monthly basis. So starting after the 4 months, we'll be doing the reviews. So we'll have a very clear picture moving forward. So yes, if it's performing at an 80%, below 85% in fact, then that would be signifying some concerns. We were looking for some real change.
I guess the overarching question is, does this model allow for a partnership model with a type relationship with the contractor where we actually share some of the risk rather than them having to price all the risk into it, or us accepting poorer performance potentially? Is there an opportunity to look at how we share that risk a bit more? When more work needs to be done, yes, we pay a bit more, but when less work needs to be done, we pay less.
Yeah, through the procurement process, we'll be wanting to ensure that we've got the best contractor to be able to undertake the work for the best possible price. One of the key considerations that we do need to take into account is where we can share that risk, especially when that's that financial side of things, and we need to get a pretty good handle on what we're trying to achieve out of that, and to make sure that we're pretty clear in where where things will start and stop. So definitely the contract we've wanted to have in place with with contractors through this procurement phase is around relationships, making sure we're getting the right outcomes for the community, and the financial side is definitely a key part of that that I see as being just as important as delivering the level of service for the community.
And if I could say, the timing that we've got for the procurement is that we've got a good space of time to negotiate and to talk to the contractor to understand the risk profile and what they see as risk and whether it's best sitting with them or whether it's something we can share. Difficult before tenders close and awarding a tender to have those sort of discussions, but certainly procurement makes that challenge. We can work within that. That's what we're signifying at the moment. We'll be looking at different options.
Okay, thank you. I mean, one of the issues that has risen in the past was work not being done because the contractor hasn't been able to get the right staff and so on, which is a challenge for everybody. But if the work is not being done, is there anything that actually helps us claw back some of the funding that we're giving them to do the work? Because if they haven't got the staff, they can't do it, and they're not paying overtime for other staff to do it because it's still not getting done. Is there anything in there?
The contract model is a measure and value, and the result of that is if the work's not being done, then they're not getting paid. So that's just the normal contractual payment process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, councillors? Okay, is someone happy to move the recommendations or anything else? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I'm happy to, Mr. Chair, with one very minor amendment on the second recommendation. I'd like to add the words between the words subject to performance achievement. I'd like that to read subject to 90% or higher performance achievement, because the only provision, the only condition on which those two possible 2-year extensions are granted in the report is if the contractor achieves that 90% or higher. And I'd like to see the recommendations make that absolutely explicit. So I move with that very minor amendment.
Okay, before I look for a second, I'll just ask, is that going to be, that does encapsulate things well enough? Yep. Okay, yeah. So do we have a second for that? Councillor Holding, thank you. Okay, any discussion?
Just very briefly speaking to it, Mayor Kircher, I'd like to thank the staff. They've responded to the comments we've made previously. I think this is we need to do it. Questions we've put to you today have been answered comprehensively and clearly, and I think they give us and should give the community confidence as well. On that basis, I was happy to move the recommendations.
Indeed, thank you. So I'm going to put it, those in favour say aye, those against, that's carried. Thank you very much to Councillor Hopkins' comments. Thanks for the report. Thanks for taking on board that the previous comments along the way. I know this is an extra job that probably weren't looking for to do this particular year, but I think it's of importance to the community that, you know, that not only are they paying to have parks and reserves kept well, that they're seeing that being done. So thank you very much. Okay, councillors, will now move to 6.2, the carry forward report. And Mr. Parmley, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you. So just a brief introduction. So this is the annual report of carry forward requests that comes forward to council to agree what elements of last year's budget should be carried forward and what shouldn't. This year, the ELT has been through this and tried to categorise what it would recommend to be carried forward and what it would recommend not to be carried forward into next year's budget. I think a lot of them fall within Josh's area or the IT area. So Josh is here to hopefully answer any questions that I'm sure you have on these as we work through the various requests.
Thank you. Josh, do you want to say anything at the moment, or are you happy to take questions as they come?
Yeah, no, I'll take the opportunity, certainly. We do have quite a large carry forward list this year. We had a lot loaded into the work program last financial year. We had a lot of carry forwards from the previous financial year. So we've got a lot of work that we haven't gotten to, and we've also got quite a large work program again for this year. So in looking at the carry forwards, essentially we said, if we are certainly not able to do it this year, we would prefer to recast it through the LTP rather than say, let's carry forward another year so that we have a larger lot again to carry forward into the LTP. So essentially, that's what we've done. We've looked at it and said, if it's achievable this year, we'll ask it to be carried forward. And if not, then we'll say, let's not carry it forward. Let's recast it in the LTP.
Thank you. And I guess it's important to note too that on some of the large projects, work may have been started, may be substantially done, but it still sits in there as a carry forward because it hasn't been quite completed versus other things that haven't been started at all, and that's really what we're talking about there, as Mr. Rendell has said. We've also got separated out the bits, the various funds that actually aren't attached to projects, but normally are part of a carry forward, so that you can see those as separate items. And I think that's important because they are reserve funds that need to obviously be there, but they're not as a result of work not being done. There's just no work allocated to use that money on. So go to any questions at all. Councillor Hopkins.
Well, I have a number, and I presume other councillors do as well. I'm just looking at on first of all on page 34. The information technology spend or proposals at the bottom, apparently the budget's been underspent in 2023 by 1.8 million. And we've then got two tranches, $700,000 worth of unspecified renewal and new capital projects. I would have thought that, you know, before we say yes or no to any of those, we'd have to have a lot more clarity and exposition. Do you want to?
We'll take them one by one, I think.
Okay.
Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you. That's certainly a question we were anticipating. When the initial budget was put through, obviously that was pre-transformation as well, and getting projects aligned with what fits then with transformation and what doesn't. So there's a number of projects that would have been in that initial amount, lots of our Hive, our digitisation, the ERP review, which has become part of the transformation project. Mr. Milner's here to talk a little bit more about the renewals and the capital projects, which does sit more around that 700 to 800,000, and that is being, there's a number of things that are actually underway, but he could speak with a bit more detail. And as we've got highlighted in here, that is still to come through to ELT to get that final approval. But Scott may like to add a bit more.
Yes, so we had a few renewals, got a couple underway. We have had some supply issues So we've had our core switching, and that's just arrived now, which we ordered last year, but we don't get invoiced until we receive the stuff. So that's $100,000 there in itself. Number of other projects are underway as well, and then we've had resourcing issues that we've just sort of resolved recently that have delayed a lot of projects and renewals that we've had to put forward. So that justifies some of the expense that's been there.
Supplementary then, Lisa, you've said that these unspecified renewal and capital projects need to be signed off by ELT, the executive leadership team. So I guess we could say today, no, they're off the table, we're not spending any money, and then the ELT would be spared the need to make a decision. Conversely, if the other option is we keep them in today, awaiting your more specific clarification and maybe modification of A, the projects, and B, the price.
I think the intention when this report was prepared is there's no key with the yellow. It is that it is not ready for a decision to be made on yet. So what I could suggest is that through one of our updates, we give a bit more detail on those. And if there's additional decisions required, then obviously we'll come back. Yeah, the other thing I would like to add is and it just highlights what Mr. Milne said around the resourcing. During the last year, we've really been very focused on the team and rebuilding the team. At one stage, a year ago, we were carrying about a 40% vacancy. We're now fully resourced, almost fully resourced, apart from a couple of the wee project areas. So they've spent a great deal of time getting things well sorted to be able to move forward. So I would hope that some of these projects will achieve alongside what we're doing in transformation over this next period.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Holding and then back to Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Lisa. As part of that budget, the 450,000 that went into transformation, was that part of this original 1.8, or was it different budget?
I think I'd have to clarify it, but the lots of the ones I listed before, the ERP, the Hive, the digitisation, they were all pulled forward into the transformation budget. So that is the shortfall of that 1 million in there from the 1.8 to what we've put forward being just 700 to 800,000. Yeah, but I could certainly get a bit more clarity in terms of that 450.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins, you had some others.
Yeah, on the next page, 35, I would have thought that with you've got Oamaru Urban Park Development continued works progress expected this year, and lower down new playground capital, another internal loan, ongoing improvements, plans for Roberts Park this year. Well, in neither instance have we seen plans or signed them off. And I would have thought that both of those could and should only get the decision to be carried forward once and if we, with the proviso that we need to see the plans first. Surely, isn't that a reasonable thing to expect?
Mr. Endo.
Thank you, Mayor Kircher. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins, for the Councillor Hopkins. Sorry for the question. The Waitaki Urban Park is the farmers market area down in the harbour. Yes. So we are working with the Harbour Area Committee as far as finalising those plans, which is the ongoing work that we're currently doing. That there is quite a lot of work involved in that. Obviously, there's quite a lot of varying opinions as to what we should be doing in that space. Hence the time that it's taken to get to this stage. With respect to the ongoing capital improvements budget within the park space, most of that budget goes to either safety improvements, improved flooring for falls, etc., or to new playground equipment. If council wishes to decide which playground equipment wishes to go into individual parks, we can certainly bring that level of detail back, though I don't believe it's probably necessary.
That's what your carry forward says, plans for Roberts Park this year.
Yeah. So what's indicated there is that we'll be planning on installing some additional equipment in Roberts Park this year. The parks team have already looked at what they would like to be installing, and they're asking for the budget to be carried forward so that they can spend the money in Roberts Park, rather than just using the budget from this year. They're wanting to also use last year's budget to be able to make more of an impact within the park space.
Thank you. Councillor McCone.
Yeah, look, I have no problem with the traffic light system and what you've identified. If we can't do it, why put it there and let's get on with what we can do. The only thing I would question is in the green is on page 36, digging and draining pond consents. I think we should also put that in there because I think there's a whole lot of options there that we haven't looked at here for that amount of money.
Thank you, Councillor McCone, for the question, or rather the comment. Just to address it, we did actually go out to tender to look at what it would cost for us to drain or remove the sediment from those ponds. It was far in excess of what we were what the available budget was. Given that testing has revealed that predominantly most of the sediment is organic in nature, we're actually looking at putting in a biochemical product that reduces the amount of organics. So we'll be dealing with the sediment by introducing some bacteria that'll eat most of the organics rather than actually having to remove it. So we're hoping that'll do the job. It still does cost quite a lot of money. Yeah, thank you.
Forgive me for being skeptical.
We all hope it will do the job. Right, Councillor Hopkins.
You look on the same page, it's a small amount, I'll grant you. But the very last item on that page is Oamaru sewer laterals into council ownership. And there's a reference into 27,500 internal loan. That has not been agreed. It was mooted about 2 years ago. There was debate around the council table about whether we did want to take the laterals into our ownership or not. The matter was not agreed by councillors, and I don't think it should be in there unless and until we have actually voted on the matter.
I'll attempt to make comment. However, given that I don't look after the water department, I'm hopefully not fumbling over words too much here. I believe that funding is set aside for a piece of policy work to be done to both undertake community consultation as well as bring back reports to you with requisite information and a formal policy on whether council would indeed accept responsibility for sewer lateral ownership or not. It is a contentious issue within the community. There is a significant cost to a number of those in the community. And, you know, there are a number of instances where this does come up and people do ask the questions, hence the work program, I suppose, for some investigation to be undertaken and then for it to be brought back to council.
Given the focus on trying not to over-engage with community, this is, you know, I'd hope this is not an additional bit of engagement and consultation. It would form something within the LTP and wouldn't require any additional cost to what's already in there. But I will leave those thoughts with you from the staff point of view, realising that you don't oversee that particular department, Josh. Councillor Hopkins.
Sorry, I don't mean to be bloodthirsty about this, but we haven't even agreed to undertake the consultation. I mean, there's a long-established principle around the country that basically ownership changes at the boundary. And what we're proposing to do is actually essentially transfer costs from individual owners to everyone else. And yes, it may well be that some people are facing substantial costs in the community. If we actually assume ownership, then the community will be incurring those substantial costs. And quite frankly, I don't think we need it. I don't think the councillors are comfortable with even changing the policy or have agreed to change the policy. So why we're consulting on it beggars belief, in my view. It should, again, I think it should come out.
Okay, I think yeah, there's not a great recollection of exactly why it's in there, what happened for it to be in there. We need to ask the question of the relevant staff, and we will, so we can understand why it's there. I can say there have been a number of issues more recently where lateral damage has been caused and it hasn't been the fault, if you like. And that's thrown some confusion onto what is the best policy on this case. So we will get the answer to that, but for the time being, that item can stay in there because it's only a small amount and it's loan funded anyway. Any other questions, councillors?
Yeah. Sorry, one more on the next page. Again, this time the top item, seal extension, 301,000 separate rate reserve. No plans to advance this year, should be resubmitted. Well, this has been, every year people ask for this. We have a policy that says if they're willing to pay half the cost, we'll do it. I do not understand. This again has not been debated by us, and quite why we're saying nothing's going to happen this year when the matter has not been considered around the council table, in my view, is perplexing. And I'm just wondering why that's in there the way it is.
Yeah. Seal extensions don't necessarily mean what I think you think it's meaning there, but Josh, would you know?
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. The title of that project is probably a little bit ambiguous. That's just how it sits within our financial system. So the title came out in that way. This particular project is the sealing of Tutu Hill Road, for which $300,000 was set aside. Council has since received a subsequent report stating that the $300,000 is insufficient to be able to seal Tutu Hill Road, and at that time weren't keen on it increasing the budget. For that reason, we're suggesting that the project be cancelled and resubmitted through the LTP.
Thank you. Yeah, so that is the reason for the traffic lighting, is that it's the year it would have been otherwise and carry forward, but actually there's maybe a separate process for that. Any other questions, councillors? Someone happy to move that we accept this? Accept the carry forwards, Councillor Holding, thank you, and Councillor McCone. Get you next time, Hannah. Any further discussion? Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, sorry, just a question in terms of the matters that Lisa and others, Josh and Scott have said, will come back to you. So presumably there are certain matters, we don't need, I think, a third recommendation, but presumably there is an agreement that there are a limited number of items about which more information is required and will be presented to council.
Certainly happy to bring back the conversation around the IT stuff, just in terms of the format that comes to council. Obviously, we need to clarify how best to do that.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much for the work that's gone into this particular report, and it's you've responded well to some of the suggestions and so on, and I think it's been slightly better or more easily understood the different parts of it. So thank you for that. Councillor Holding, you look like
Sorry to say one more question, probably not a silly question, but just for the projects that had already had internal loans raised and now they're not giving carrying forward, does that do anything to how does that work into the balance sheet?
I believe it would be the case that internal loan wouldn't obviously be raised, so it would be cancelled. Yep. So if we're not expending project funds, then we wouldn't take out a loan for it. So it would free up some space in the balance sheet.
okay. Right. So put it that we approve the carry forward. Those in favour say aye. Against, that's carried. We have a bit of a gap before the CCOs turn up, which is the remaining 3 items in public. So what we'll do now, a bit of time before morning tea, so we'll go to public excluded, do a couple of sets of minutes in there, and then go for morning tea. So we'll be back with the live stream at 10:30. We'll just have a break while would someone like to move that we go into public excluded? Deputy Mayor Halili, and second, Councillor Linwood. Those in favour say aye. And against, it's carried. Just have a break now until we get things changed over.